Welcome to the Law Firm Growth Podcast, where we share the latest tips, tactics, and strategies for scaling your practice from the top experts in the world of growing law firms. Are you ready to take your practice to the next level? Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Law Firm Growth Podcast. I'm your host as always, Jan Roos, and I am super excited for our episode today with Elizabeth Stephenson, who's the managing partner of New Direction Family Law over in Raleigh, North Carolina. Elizabeth has been posting some absolutely jaw-dropping numbers as far as growth. She's a member of the honoree on the Law Firm 500 this year and also some years before. But in this last year, she has over tripled her law firm's total revenue by, so the specific number is 353%, which a lot of people would be happy with if that happened in a decade, but this is almost an every year occurrence for you. So we are super excited to dig in and see how, if there's anything that people can take from that story. So thanks, Elizabeth.
Sure.
So I like to usually get started with kind of the big superhero origin story. So do you mind, obviously some fantastic results been happening lately, but what's kind of the story of how you got here?
Ooh, that's a long story. I graduated law school 20 years ago and joined with a solo practitioner and then had a baby, and I was too stupid to know any better, so I just hung a shingle out. And it sort of organically grew from there, but I never got really big. I never hit $250,000 a year, and I didn't really try at it. And then my husband got sick in 2014, and so I closed my practice to take care of him, and when he passed in 2015, I had to find something to do and some way to take care of myself and my child. And I think the biggest difference from the first start to this start 3 years ago now is that I had the time and the money to really think about how I wanted to market my firm, the values I wanted my firm to have, to get a website and hire a marketing director, which I had never had before. And I just really think that that's allowed us to focus on being lawyers and having someone else sort of help run the practice and do the marketing has made the biggest difference for me.
So really interesting contrast. So it's almost like you've had two careers in law. And if I'm doing my math right, if we're going back 20 years, it was like that first go, never quite reaching the $250,000 mark in a 14-year span. And then doing all this stuff really kind of compressed into this three-year period, which is fantastic. But, basically, obviously you had that external event, which is really unfortunate to hear, that I'm sure jogged your mindset a little bit. But
right.
I mean, the thing is that there's a lot of people that try marketing or are aware of the power of marketing, but don't end up really succeeding it. So I want to see if there's any way like that. Do you know, like what kind of change as far as your mentality with implementation, as far as, after prioritizing the marketing, how have you really changed how you think about things versus when, the first time around running the practice?
I think that I was truly a solo. I mean, I answered the phone, I wrote the letter, I put the stamp on it, I took it to the post office. And I don't say this in any way other than I really didn't have to do it. I didn't have to make any more money. I had a husband and he was a family lawyer. And so I sort of dabbled in it. I didn't really have to do it. And this go around, I had to do it. And I realized that life is short and divorce is like death. And, you can't say where you are and you can't go backwards. You've got to go forward. So even our name was a conscious decision about going in a new direction. And so I felt personally vested. It's me that's built this firm from one person to 13 in 3 years. And so I have a personal stake in it, and it's my reputation on the line as well as this fabulous staff that I have. Everybody here buys into our philosophy, into our value system, and to our culture. And I think that makes all the difference.
All right. So that's actually, great segue. So let's dig into that a little bit. So we've got the new firm, and I didn't actually realize that the rebrand happened when you rebooted the practice, but we've got a literal new direction as far as where you wanted to take the practice. So can you tell us how we kind of arrived at that model? I think, at a high level, you saw how it was going, but what's sort of this new model that you've been looking at for family law? Because I do see this kind of as a topic, you see a Marriage Story winning or all kinds of Oscars and stuff like that. I feel like it's a topic that's really in the cultural zeitgeist right now, but how do you kind of consider these things and what's the difference been since you've done that?
I think, I have a master's in social work, so I've been a former life. I've had a lot of lives. I was a child therapist. And so I know a little bit about family dynamics. A lot of attorneys don't. So I do have that insight and I see how it all works and I know how it affects everyone. And so it's not just, we don't just provide you with legal services. We really wrap our arms around you. Part of what Jen Bordeaux has done, our marketing director, is she's our community touch point. And so if you need it, we have everybody you have a therapist, you have a financial advisor, you have a real estate agent, so that you really have all of these people in your corner that help you, because if you don't get those issues taken care of, I can't help you as an attorney to move your case forward. So it's not just about the law. It sounds cliche, but it really is a whole person philosophy that when you walk in this firm, we're going to take care of you in a bigger and a wider way to help you get through this.
Yeah, that's really interesting too, because like you said, it is kind of a often thrown around kind of cliche is like, hey, it's really more than that. But, it seems like you guys have really put your money where your mouth is as far as, taking that from something that's being said to something that's actually differentiating in terms of the service that you guys are offering, which is super cool. Okay, so basically we've got this new model that's kind of been set out. So if we want to take this back to 3 years from now, so we've hired the marketing director, we've got this new sort of lease and on getting these kind of things done. Where do you start with? So, basically, I think this is an issue that a lot of solos face. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, I know there's a lot of things that we can do with marketing, but if I fast forward 10 years and see all the stuff that I could possibly be doing, how do you pick where to start? And what did you guys end up going with? And then what did that sort of evolution look like over time?
When I started, literally was again, just me. And I had someone who I'd worked with before was helping me do the branding and doing the name. And once we got that done and did some focus groups, I then was fortunate enough to find a really, really, really fabulous company who spent 3 months developing my website. And they sat down with me and they talked to me about what my values were and what I wanted and what the culture was. And so they listened to me. So what you see on a website, it just got redone. But what the first one showed you was exactly what I wanted it to say. And I think it just resonated with people. And so I got, it was me and a laptop and a shared office, and I got a client, then I got another client, then I got another client, then I hired a paralegal, and it just sort of snowballed from there because we put our money where our mouth is when we tell you we're going to do something, we do it. And so now we do spend some money, not a lot of money on Google ads, but we spend it on our intake. We send our people to training. We have a dedicated intake specialist. We keep up with our numbers. We know who calls, where they call from, how much we're going to get from them. We can tell you through the day how that's working. So it's just all those pieces that have to work together. But it didn't happen overnight. It took time to get it to start rolling, but it did.
Yeah, gotcha. So basically it was like the ability to sort of reinvest as well as focus on the areas that kind of mattered. And it's funny that you bring that up because this is another thing that I've heard specifically in the legal market ever since, Clio's 2019 legal trends report dropped about the terrible state of affairs with law firm intake as a whole.
Right.
Could we go into a little bit more depth in the kind of stuff that you're having your intake staff focus on and maybe what kind of training that you're getting these guys involved in?
We do have a firm that helps us specifically only with intake, and they train them. We have a script about how to answer. They know they're trained in how to get them to set the appointment. They're trained how to, flush them out. That I'd rather have 10 ICs during a week than 20 when 10 of them aren't any good. Get me the ones that are good, then I know how to do that. We have a system texting and emailing about following up. If you call our office, you get called back and we're closed. You get an email back that says we're closed, but we have somebody that's going to call them at 8:30. Because if we don't get to them, they're going to go down the list and get the next person on the Google chain. So we do training. We send them off for training. They have numbers they look at that they have to reach each month, and they have a bonus system to do it. So that's part of it. And then the other follow-up is doing the text and emailing to remind and sending out the forms ahead of time and telling them what they need to bring with us, and answering questions before they get here. So when they get here, they're already in the mindset that they know us and they want to hire us. So it takes half the battle away, that they're already conditioned to want to come in and want us to help them.
Yeah, that's all super, it's kind of funny. This is one of the things I always used to say is basically the big difference in a lot of companies that grow really fast compared to law firms that oftentimes don't is treating intake as really a really high
Right.
return individual. And it seems like you've actually set this up in the same way that a Silicon Valley startup would be treating their sales team. Like we're talking, I'm hearing quotas, I'm hearing commissions, like this is all fantastic stuff. I mean, and that's the thing too. If you guys want to, like anyone listening, take a look at the numbers. We try to hammer on the importance of focusing on stuff like intake, but this is the kind of results that you get when you do. So this is pretty
well, if you're not getting in the door, you're not going to sign them up as a client.
Yeah. It doesn't, it doesn't matter how nice the site is, or, it's not going to do the sales for you. We might come to a point where it gets there, but, for the time being, just picking up the phone and being good at that is really kind of the best game in town.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing that we do that's really important to me when I opened this firm was to give back to the community. And so we're heavily involved in nonprofits throughout. We have like 3 counties sort of that touch each other that we work with. And every one of my staff has to either be working on getting on a board of directors or being on a committee. And we do fundraisers, and we have them on our Facebook Lives, and we have a YouTube channel, and we have our Facebook page, and we do fundraisers. And I think that means a lot to people too. When they look at our website, they see how involved we are in the community. And you don't see very many law firms doing that, I don't think.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And if I can kind of dig into some of the things you mentioned. So, I think it's awesome from just the perspective of doing the right thing to get involved in this. But it seems like you mentioned a couple things quickly, like the Facebook Lives and stuff. So I think it's also, the branding is a really great thing as well. But it seems like you're doing some promotion for this as well. So like, how's kind of the marketing end up integrating with something like this?
We call it Family Law and Court. So we have like a huge referral network, professionals. So we bring them in and we do a Facebook Live with them. Like we just did one on prenups, I think last Wednesday. And so so we promote them, and then we put them out on our YouTube channel. We send them the link. They put it out on theirs. And so it's like, again, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. So we become the experts in the community. And then we're always, if we're out doing something, we've got every social media network that there is. I don't because I'm old, but they Instagram, they Facebook, they do all of that. So we're out there and we're making impressions, and people see us not just as attorneys, but as people. And so I think, again, that gets them sort of ready when they walk in the door. They feel like they know us and that, we're a friend that can help them in a way. All of that put together not only benefits our referral partners, but it also benefits us too. So we always have to try to make it go both ways.
Yeah, I'm starting to see the flywheel come together because, none of these things would really be possible without the other. Like, obviously, if you guys didn't have as awesome of a message and as differentiated as a service, it would be less exciting to talk about. It's possible you wouldn't have the success that you have, but, the fact that you have the brand in the places, the team to execute this promotion, and the actual things that you're doing all kind of makes sense.
Exactly.
Fantastic stuff. I'm kind of getting the impression that it's obviously happened in a really, really short timeline. Do you guys ever miss? It's like, it seems like, you've made a lot of extremely smart hiring decisions. How have you kind of had so much, it's probably more process than luck, but how are you getting involved with such great situations, whether it's the partners that you're working with, the staff that you're hiring, or that kind of thing?
It's just, again, sometimes I think it's just dumb luck. My partner, Sarah Hank, and I used to work together at my former firm. Jim Bordeaux and I used to work together at my former firm. One of my paralegals and I used to work together at my former firm. So I think that people gravitate together that have the same ethical values and need to help folks. And so that, just as 4 starting out, we already knew each other and we had that culture. And so when we hired, everybody you don't just talk to me, you talk to everybody in the firm. And then we have a meeting about it. Sarah and I, at the end of the day, get to make the decision. But if we hired somebody that didn't fit in if I hired an admin who didn't work well with the paralegal, that's just not going to work. So although the buck does stop here, we all have a say-so, and we all bought into this is the way we work and this is what we value, and if that's not for you, then we certainly understand that. But everybody that we've hired, except for our legal assistants, everybody that we've hired, they are still here. And so I think that says a great deal about the firm, the culture, and how we treat our folks.
Yeah, no, that's super impressive. And then the other thing I wanted to kind of dig into is sort of, in addition to making a lot of the right choices, it seems like, you guys have a pretty ruthless focus on where to prioritize. What's kind of I know it's kind of tough to think about how you think, but like, what's sort of the process that you go to figure out where the highest points of leverage are in maximizing the business?
Honest to gosh, it's the intake. We update our business plan every year. We update our budget every year. We have our projections every year. And we know how many clients we have to get in the door, how many we have to set an IC with, how many we have to close. We have our associates, everybody can quote a number on a case, but we have a range that you have to quote in. And if you go in there confident and they know that we can do the job for you, then they're going to pay what we're worth. And so focusing on the numbers and much money I have to get in here every month, which is, it's kind of overwhelming sometimes, but I think we just do good work and people know that. And so they keep coming back and they keep referring. Now we're getting to the point where we're getting a lot of referrals. We're not having to depend on, the Google and the advertising so much. And I think that just comes with time. So I just see it only getting bigger and better, quite frankly.
Sorry. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it's kind of interesting too, because that's one of those things I feel like people kind of misinterpret sometimes, because I'm sure you're doing good work the first go around until 2014. And I think good work alone is honestly, it's obviously the basis of every practice, but good work plus good marketing, that's when you really start to see the kind of
That's
exponential.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And unfortunately it takes, you've got to have some upfront. I really do believe you have to have some upfront money and invest in your startup before you start up, because that's, you get one time to make a first impression. You got to take some time and money and work with the right people to make that happen right out the gate, I think.
And I bet there's going to be people listening to this podcast who are in a similar situation. That you probably found yourself in 2014. If anyone's listening to this right now and they've kind of been stuck in a loop for 5 or 10 years, and I actually recorded a podcast about this the other week about kind of a solo practice Groundhog's Day.
Right.
If somebody really wanted to make a go of it, what would you say in terms of resources, in terms of timeline, in terms of people that people need to really just kind of make the kind of dent and make a splash the same way that you did? Like, what would we can go into as much or as little detail as you want, but what do you think would really be enough for people to take that next step?
I think you have to just acknowledge that you can't do it all. There aren't enough hours in the day. And I'm not an expert, and that's not my forte. That's not my wheelhouse. So I hired people who are very good at what they do, whether they're outside consultants or staff. Just start. You don't have to have 13 people. I mean, we had 4 people for almost 2 years, and just got so busy we had to start hiring more people. But I think you need to have an intake, someone dedicated to intake. You need someone dedicated to marketing. And then, you need a good paralegal. And that's the startup for your company. It took me 4 months to get it all together, to get it from my idea to getting the webpage and getting one staff person and $100,000 and some plus $1,000. But you got to spend money to make money, and that's just the way it works.
And okay, so that's super good advice. As far as like the kind of things that you're consuming, so it's you kind of see like some really, really good thinking happening around this. How do you really books or training or thought leaders, who do you respect in the field that you might be able to recommend to anyone who's looking to have the same kind of results as you?
I think it's just, and the other one thing we didn't touch on is you really have to have, this is a business, and you got to, you need to, that's what I spend a lot of my time on, is learning about how to run a business. Because they don't teach you that in law school. We all know that. But Arjan, I was in his program for back in the day, like in 13, 14. I learned a lot about how to run a business from that program, I will say. And taking that philosophy and those 7, I think it's the 7 portions of a business, and focusing on those. And then we use, I don't know if we used the Rainmaker Institute that does our intake. We have a firm that does all of our Google and all of our online and all of our SEO. That's all contracted out, and Jen just sort of oversees all that. And then we have a CPA and a financial advisor and that sort of thing. So we have a professional that's helped Sarah and I in each of the parts of our business, so that we can have good advice and we follow their advice, and it seems to have worked so far.
So getting the right people in every position, and
Exactly.
I guess that that helps. I mean, if you kind of think about it too, that's a lot of people say. It's like you could, one of the shortest ways to take a learning curve and cut it down is just to go straight to the people who've already gone off it, right?
That's exactly right. Why invent the wheel? Let them help us help ourselves, because that's not what we do best, and so we hire people who do it best.
Yeah. All right. So what's next for the firm?
I do want to sort of branch out into the collaborative law piece of that. I mean, what I envision is that, I don't know when it'll be, but hopefully soon, we'll have a therapist who is in our office at least 2 or 3 times a week. I'll have the people that they need here in my office. They may not be here every 5 days a week, but they can be here so that if you have a question or you need a therapist or we need to work on your financial affidavit, well, let me just walk you down the hall. Here's the guy that can help you do that. So it's a one-stop shop. So everything can get done sort of here. And then education, we believe education is power. So we're excited to start. We're going to start our own podcast, rolling around the idea of calling it the exit strategy. We're not quite sure.
I like that.
Now we just keep doing our YouTubes and our Facebook Lives and going out and making presentations and being the expert that people can turn to. And I think that's can only help us grow our business and change how people think about. When I tell people what I do, they go, "Oh, that must be so horrible. How do you do it?" And I just want to change that. It's very uplifting and very fulfilling to watch people move from the worst place in their life to the best place in their life and help them get there.
Yeah, and that's a really powerful message. I mean, it's it seems that like the priorities are again in what you're choosing to do with your time, which is continuing to make the service that you offer just better and better, and you're reinvesting into the innovation and getting it out to more people. So
right.
I'm sure nothing can be nothing but more success on the road for you. Now, as far as the if anyone's looking to get in touch, what's the best way to find you?
Please go visit our website. There's a lot of good information on there. It's just New Direction Family Law. You can do it. Just search us. Our YouTube will pop up. Our Facebook will be there. You're welcome. I'm happy to talk to folks. They're welcome to call the office, and our number's on the webpage, because I want to see this philosophy grow. I think we just need to change how we treat families that are going through a crisis and do it in a caring and a kind and a thoughtful way.
So, I mean, that's, really great stuff, Elizabeth. And thank you so much for the time. And then, if anyone is one of those family law practices that's thinking, hearing this and thinking that's a really good idea, do reach out. We'll make sure to have some information for that in the show notes. And thanks again. And, this is a super awesome podcast. And for everyone else, I'll see you guys next week on the Law Firm Growth Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Law Firm Growth Podcast. For show notes, free resources, and more, head on over to casefuel.com/podcast. Looking forward to catching up on the next episode.